they did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. 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 I'm not the mistakes that I have made or any of the things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left behind. I am light. 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 Yeah. I am light. I am light. I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. All light.
No, don't do that.
All light. Yeah. All light.
Huh?
I
Yeah, I guess so.
am light. I am light.
About to go live.
I am light. I am light. Yeah. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am a star, a piece of it all. I am light.
Welcome to our Rebirth Sunday. It took me almost 6 months to get Super Soul Sistar Sunday out without a tongue twister. However, it is Spirit that has said, we're rebirthing Sunday. And so I'll get right into it. I don't know why I didn't start there, but we're rebirthing Sunday in the lives of women who are growing forth in Goddess. And so I am excited to share with you today. I'm looking forward to you sharing with me later on, as this is a two-way process. There is so much to share. We've been talking about the law of vibration, and before I jump into that, I want to introduce myself to those who are joining for the first time. I am Reverend LaTanya Taylor, affectionately known as the Rev Coach, the Juicy Spirit Mama, the Priestess of Passion, Purpose, Pleasure, and Passion. And I am excited to extend that to you all who are brand new and who are invited to the call or found the call on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. This is a space for those who are from all walks of life, who come from various traditions. However, we are focused on women growing forth in the divine feminine and applying that such that you can become the priestess of your own household, such that you can continue the journey to grow forth in Goddess. God is all that ever has been, to strengthen your prayer life and to provide inspiration for those who know that there's something more than what you have been traditionally taught, and you're willing to tap into the something more. That's what this this space is birthing and rebirthing over and over again for those who started the journey or those who are just beginning the journey. So I want to do a sound check for just to make sure that my internet signal is coming through clearly. 301-675. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, ma'am. We hear you clearly.
Thank you. I'm going to leave you off of mute so you can check in if something happens that I'm unaware of. So Today, I want to remind you all that when we work with universal law, there's always a complementary disciple or discipleship that we can apply to the universal laws that we are also applying in our lives. For many of you, you probably have been all around it for years, and just taking the Bible at face value or at the value of that particular preacher's understanding. When you start to study from a higher place, up in the upper room, it levels and equalizes all of our interpretations, and you begin to have spirit speak within you. And it transcends dogma, man's interpretation of what God said. When you know law elevates you to be able to apply it, mind, body, spirit. And I also want to say this to those of you who are working with business coaching. I'm looking forward to those who are doing their business visions with me. I'm going to give you some disclosure. I'm qualifying some people for an elite training that I am developing. I told Minister Dana this almost a year and a half ago, and I give thanks that it's taken this long now. At first I got frustrated, but I give thanks because I know that it works. And I'm not openly doing a whole lot of talking about it, but I have discovered through my own application how the practical laws of the universe apply in commerce and in business. And most of it is hidden in plain sight. And traditional business people tend to separate it out, and what happens is we go to all these different people who give you different philosophies about business, and then we try to implement it the way they did. Because if they made $1 million in 1 year, then we want to apply their formula. And then when we apply their formula and it doesn't work, then oftentimes we look at ourselves because we say, well, it worked for them. Trust me, I've been there and I have done that. We do the same thing when it comes to our marriages. We'll go and instead of doing the deeper work to get to your root, and that person doing the deeper work to get to their root and why you attracted each other and that thing, sometimes we'll go and we'll get Bible, Christian therapy and all these other things that really never get to the root of and the heart of the matter. And so as a metaphysician, and also as one who has journeyed through different religions. See, I didn't just go to school. I went on a journey. I went on a journey while I was in school, while I was studying to seminary to be a coach as well. First to be a coach and then into seminary. And ordination and all of that. I had set out on a journey, the road less traveled, the prodigal daughter, if you will. And from that, I'm able to see. I've gone and sat with various traditions. I highly recommend that if you've only gone to your good old Baptist church and you only fellowship with your good old Baptist friends, and even in the personal development space, go visit a Buddhist temple. Come to the Akan or to the Yoruba, to the Bimbes, and go to the Baha'i temple, and or just travel and take a journey, so that God in you can say, see, I come in all different forms, and I speak in all different ways. And that began to change my whole life and perspective. So I offer that as a divine setup. You've seen me put out a few things this morning. I start early on Sunday mornings, and I usually wait till Sunday to put it out because a lot of times, you know, even if I'm studying, Spirit could change it in the middle of the night in dream. I mean, before the night before in a dream or when I wake up, and I've just got to make sure when I wake up it's still the same thing, because I have definitely put things out far in advance, unless it's a guest speaker, and Spirit say, nope, that ain't what I'm going to use you as a mouthpiece for. So, but what has been consistent is the next phase is for you to understand the discipleship of strength. This whole notion as it applies to women, which when it comes to being strong, really has been exaggerated through what looks like the masculine. Our strength oftentimes starts to show up as not crying, not being emotional. And so you start to have women who say, you know, who have tear ducts that have been backed up for years because they haven't cried, because they haven't given themselves a moment because they see that to be some form of weakness. and so then we have women who have not talked about the traumas or such for years, meaning going to therapy, coaching, counseling, whatever the case may be, doing workshops that really go deep into soul surgery. So we stay on the surface and dwell on the surface, and then we go back and strength looks like multitasking and carrying a whole lot of responsibility and weight on your shoulder when you don't want to, you don't have to, or you feel like if I don't do it, then how is it going to get done? Strength can look like, I love to use this analogy, the stereotypical, I'm talking to women this morning, right? If you're a man on the call, you have a role in this because you come from a womb. And most of the time, men have been raised by women who have had to be strong, particularly as this whole trend of single mother, you know. Even that in America has been exaggerated. I remember when I started to do some research, and I said, why do we quote statistics? Why do we quote the statistics released by the Washington Post and the New York Times about us and our culture? It tells you how much amnesia we're operating in as a culture, because we start to attach our emotional intelligence to concepts that have been distorted by our natural enemy, people who don't love us, people who don't appreciate us and have a vested interest in having us believe in the Willie Lynch syndrome, which, you know, the darker and the lighter have them pitted against one another, and have the man and the woman pitted against one another. And so now many of you have gone years attaching to, I didn't have a man in the household. And so did you all know that when you look at tribal communities, that women oftentimes were the ones who held down the fort? Even when they had a man, they may as well have been single, because the men went out. They went out and they hunted. They had a particular, and when you go to hunt in tribal communities, you don't go to hunt just overnight. Sometimes you go and you hunt until you find something. You got to go out into the perimeter. Some of this is really a myth and exaggerated. Where it comes in is where it comes to women having to raise men is oftentimes women, after a man reaches puberty, he's turned over to the masculine to take him on the journey of manhood. But let me say this to you, sisters, how many of you have been turned over to be taken on the journey of womanhood? And so this is why we attach to our baseline childhood experiences with trauma and such, because we didn't have any diversity of mentors. We didn't have any diversity of references unless you came from a big family. And even that does not mean your bloodline, even though it was our bloodline oftentimes, that was the tribe. So, but we come from a people where you have many mothers. Even if you go to Africa today, I've talked to Africans who are here in America, and they call, and even in those of us who practice any of the African traditions, when a woman comes into this space, she's called Mama Latanya, Mama Dawn, Mama whatever. So when I bring my child to you, I say, hey, go take this to Mama Tommy. Go take this, and the reason for that is because every woman, particularly a melanated woman, is mother. So we take on these ideas and these concepts where we either omit one part of ourselves or exaggerate another part of ourselves. And I want to go, let me back up. I just wanted to give you some context of where we're coming from. So when you look at the discipleship of strength, the discipleship of strength is demonstrated by the apostle Andrew, who is the brother of Peter. Andrew's name actually means strong man. And so this idea of, last month we talked about the discipleship of faith. So when you couple this idea of faith and strength, it's coupled with faith, that means that there's a greater expression of what is unseen. Because when we start to talk about, last month we also talked about the law of mind. And so I want to read something to you really quickly, an excerpt. I want to say, I'll double check this excerpt and tell you where it's from, but I'm using the 12 powers. And I want to say, it says that Jehovah is the man making the Adam man and breathing into his nostrils the breath of life. The Adam man exists in the subconsciousness as a multitude of men. Okay, check this out. When you read Bible again, every person has a representation both in the mind, the body, and the spirit. It is not just about a historical character, okay? So Adam represents multiple men, okay? And so Adam, I know we're talking about Andrew, but I'm reading something to you. The Adam man exists in the subconsciousness, the wise man and the foolish man, the kind man and the cruel man, the loving man and the hateful man, the stingy man and the generous man, the hungry man and the full man, the happy man and the troubled man, the weak man and the strong man, the good man and the bad man, the live man and the dead man, the poor man and the rich man, the timid man and the courageous man, the sick man and the healthy man, the old man and the young man, the erratic man and the sane man. These and 1,000 other types of man as active personalities occupy the consciousness of every human being. Yes, you. Even every male has within him the female, and every female has within her the male. This fact is admitted by physiology, sustaining the Genesis record of the ideal creation of man as male and female, and his expression in Adam and Eve as male and female in one man. The fact was corroborated by the great teacher, Jesus, when he said, "Have ye not read that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female?" The strong man, fully armored, referred to by Jesus, is the strength and stability in man. And I want to focus on the strength and the stability, because some of us who are empaths, who are sensitive, our vulnerability, our sensitivity shows up in different ways. It's not just about our feelings being hurt. It's about our nervous system sometimes being extremely sensitive to certain types of stress, not just other people, but sounds, smells, tones. They all can set us off. Empaths tend to feel things 10 times more than the average person. So how you know you may have been empathic or a HSP, a highly sensitive person, is a lot of times people say, I didn't get that. Why you let that bother you like that? And your young answer may have been, I don't know. And I don't know turns into shame. When you begin to feel a certain way, you start to think you're weak because of the sensitivity. I want to talk to those who have had to be strong, had to be in survival mode. You may have grown up in abject poverty, and now you, by all measurements, you are successful because you have a home, a car. You're able to go to a job and raise your children without government assistance. Sometimes that's considered strength. Sometimes we see our sisters who are loud, boisterous, and really obtuse out in the street. They have had to take on an armor of strength in order to survive in neighborhoods where there's gun violence, where they're fighting your way on the way to school. Anybody from New Orleans know what I'm talking about, or sometimes from New York City. Wherever your urban environment is, you've taken on something that looked like strength, but is it false strength? Because at a certain point, when it's false strength, you tire really easy. You start to get really tired of not just having to be strong, but you get tired of yourself, and your mind and your body and your spirit gets tired. And a lot of times we have not developed our staying power, our capacity to stay in the process of quote unquote becoming. And then that can become stressful. The whole idea of I got to become this, I got to become that, when you apply external measurements based on what you see other people have. But when you start to make peace with your becoming, with your metamorphosis, with the phase of what looks like it may be laying low and then there's a full coming out. When you start to make peace with these places, it says that greater is he that is in me than he who is what? In the world. So listen, when we start to take on false strength, we start to divide ourselves. We in the ego begins to be our measurement for being strong. And so when you start to come into your discipleship, Jesus is a reference of the strength and the stability in man. And it says in natural man, he's manifested as physical strength, but in regeneration, he is overcome and his possessions are divided or given to other faculties as a nucleus, which the higher forces gather. The stronger than he that I just mentioned is who takes away the whole armor in the strong man trusted as spiritual strength. And so when we look in the Bible, we see references of spiritual strength through David and Goliath. I talked about that in the very first introduction of the law of vibration. This is week 3 in this superpower. Remember, we're activating our superpowers. We see strength as a reference for Samson. But when you break down that story, you can see the performance anxiety of Samson, because Samson didn't have to really become anybody. He was born into it. And many of us we don't really have to become, we really have to remember. Some of us are on the journey of just remembering, and you don't know that you're remembering necessarily, but you at some point you know that you know there's something in you that knows that this is truth about you, whether it is your sexual freedom, whether it is your womanhood that you are liberating, whether it is your new definition of marriage and relationships, whether it is you taking the labels that you placed on yourself as a mother, whether it is you stepping into your newfound rebirth, your emergence of being transformed, not to be your mother, not to carry her story, even though your parents may have dropped the ball in some area of your life. When you start to do your work, you dig into those roots and you start to wonder why you're showing up the way you're showing up. And you know, I've said this before. When I look at strength, I come from a family of very strong matriarchal women, strong and feminine nonetheless. I will say I give thanks that I come from the most sassy, sexy, feminine line of women on my mother's side and the most earthy, grounded lineage of women on my father's side. And I always saw that strength, but I didn't really know what I was looking at because a lot of women in the South show up as that soul food figure, that soul food grandmother. And when I began to do more of my work of the divine feminine, I looked at, too, how sacrificial that was, how many of them left here with hypertension, high blood pressure, and heart disease and strokes and such. And when did that start happening for women? Because women typically live longer than men. And now we start to see the epidemic of breast cancer and ovarian cancer and cysts and fibroids. And all of these are basically a strain on the reproductive organs of women, which is the woman's identity, her breast, her womb. When the womb and the breast become diseased, then there's some type of stress that is being placed. Before I went to do my surgery, when I had the fibroid surgery years ago, I was, of course, doing studying and talking to the fibroids and asking questions and then going and study. How did you get here? Why are you here? What do you represent? And then I learned that, you know, fibroids represent aborted visions and dreams. And this is one of the reasons I started to show up 100% in ministry, in doing my business, because I was scared, y'all. And so then I started to say, well, okay, well, what do you represent? And then I'm starting to find out what visions did I abort? What hurts and resentments have I nursed that have landed in my womb? What is it that's there for me that I need to know from this? And so my womb began to speak. That's real talk. When you do work with me, you get a chance to dive into these types of stories. And so I learned how the connection between stress and all of the reproductive diseases, including any temporary or long-term infertility, and the emotional intelligence around all of this. And so I didn't have a mother to teach me that. Quite frankly, many of you didn't either. And we don't have doctors nor clergy who teach this. You have to go to a specialist. And sometimes when you go to the specialist they don't look like the model of strength that you've been looking at. And so, you know, when we look at even the stories of old, strength was represented by Samson's hair. But hair has a metaphysical meaning when it comes to his vitality. Goliath was what represents the beast. All of us have a beast in us that we have to slay. We have to slay those beasts that rise up in us as the spirit of jealousy and the spirit of envy and the spirit of anger, rage, comparison, those things that live on the ego side of the equation. And so when we start to look at strength, right, we look at Ephesians 6:10, and it says, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. And so this is why a lot of people we talk about his, what won't he do it? Won't he do it? And so when we talk about he in no she's is referred to except for a character or two in the Bible. We rarely do you hear anybody, Christians, saying, won't she do it? When we hear that the name of Jehovah is a strong tower, when you go and you study, you understand that when it said be strong in the Lord, what Lord? What Lord is something that we've attached to Jesus and characters and whatever the case may be. But remember, everybody in this circle, if you've been coming long enough, you know that Lord means law of life. Be strong in the law of life. If there's a law of life, then there is also a law of death. And so many of us have been living in the law of death and calling it Christ and calling it Jesus and calling it survival and calling it normal and calling it a 9-to-5 and calling it marriage and calling it timelines of childbirth and these are the things that stress us out and kill us over time and kill our visions and kill our dreams because we're not living fully in the law of life. Be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. His whenever it references Father, and he is usually talking about the conscious mind. So be in the strength of his conscious mind. It is to be steadfast, strong, and steady in thought, and you will establish strength in mind and in body. Never let the thought of weakness enter your consciousness, but always ignore the suggestion and affirm yourself to be a tower. A tower meaning that, check this out. In my vulnerability, I am made strong. That began to change me. In my weakness, I am made strong. A lot of us as women have been so afraid to be vulnerable. Vulnerability, I remember one time this fine, did I say fine? Fine dentist came to me because he wanted me to coach him. He wanted to, this particular, he was a dentist, is a dentist, and he had this peculiar call on his life to help people. But he really felt like, who am I to be telling anybody anything? Yes, even the most accomplished of us sometimes are walking in esteemed positions, but it's not necessarily our call. And so he came to me, and he was on the edge of a divorce. He was dating someone else, happily dating someone else, and he felt so much guilt because his marriage had, quote-unquote, failed. And so he started to share some things with me. And when I talked to him about vulnerability as a strength, he literally, I watched the masculine rise up in him to shut that down. Because he was like, what do you mean? He was like, you never want to be vulnerable, because he was using a war definition of vulnerability. There's a war definition of vulnerability where you never let your opponent know your weakness, and you never want your troops or your squad to be in a vulnerable position where an enemy can enter in. And many of us are still using a warlike term when it comes to vulnerability. So as women, we have begun to operate in the masculine, not knowing that when it comes to spiritual language, you abandon the Merriam-Webster's version of language. You have to go beyond. Merriam-Webster's dictionary has actually been dumbed down quite a bit, where she doesn't even give you the etymology and the origins of the words, because we know that English is a bastard language. And so when we come to define ourselves around vulnerability, if you're using the external measurements of the Western mind, vulnerability seems like a no-no. And he struggled with that thing when I began to talk to him about vulnerability. At one point, he even shut down. And some of you do the same thing when it comes to vulnerability and strength. We don't see that our vulnerability is strength. And I know you all know, have you ever been having to resolve a conflict with your beloved or with somebody you love dearly? You came with a warlike position, really. Yes, you came to show up at the meeting or the conversation to settle the conflict, but you had something to get off your chest. And after you got it off your chest, sometimes you hit this place in the conversation where the truth is told. And the truth supersedes the facts. The truth has nothing to do really sometimes with the other person. The truth is the thing that will sometimes crack you wide open. And in that place, your humanness rises up between you and the other person, and you can hear each other. And you can forgive each other. And you can see that it never was intended to be malicious. Even if there's infidelity, even if there is sometimes even where you have felt abused. And I'm not talking about perverted abuse, y'all. I'm talking about sometimes it's verbal abuse, and sometimes it's neglect. Sometimes it's just selfishness on the part of another person, being taken advantage of, or that type of thing. And so there's this place in ourselves where you have permission to live. You don't have to just go to it when you are in crises. When you begin to evolve yourself, Fillmore says that evolution is the result of the development of ideas in mind. What we are is the result of the evolution of our consciousness, and that consciousness is the result of seed ideas sown in our mind. When you come in here, you may not understand every level because I'm talking to people at different levels on the journey. And if you have not been on the journey, you may hear the basics. Another person may hear the middle. Another person may hear the advanced. Some people now, you hear all of it. You get all of it because you are evolving. And so it started out as a seed. But a lot of times we don't stay with the seed long enough that we have planted or the one that has been planted in us because of our impatience that's rooted in ego. We're sometimes more impatient with ourselves than we are with other people. I know women who are more patient with a man in their, a no good man in their life than they are with their sister who is making mistakes along the way. That's oftentimes a disconnect with herself. Some of us have been taught to put men on a pedestal and not to trust women. And that weakens our ability to trust ourselves. And so this idea of strength, sometimes we need to abandon those things, those concepts that no longer work for us so that we can continue to evolve and access higher law. In other words, when we connect this with the law of vibration, you cannot vibrate higher when you keep on holding on to low-level definitions of what strength is. That's what I get from this. You may get something else, and I would love to hear what it is you get. But I want to close with this. Whatever a man soweth, so shall he reap. And so every word or idea in divine mind is sown into man in his mind and then brought forth according to man, woman's receptivity. A lot of times we are not as receptive to new ideas, but we want the results. And so new ideas, they require a developmental process in us, even if you're an empath, even if you have held on to the identity of being a single mother, divorced woman, a widow, even if you have been operating in your title. That is not your strength. Your strength is who you are without all of that. All of that. and being able to love on it no matter what. And so this, when it comes to vibrating higher, y'all, we all have to be consistent, steadfast, and immovable when it comes to doing our daily work. I said all that to say I could have started off with that. A lot of times, y'all, we are spiritually lazy. Spiritual laziness does not produce spiritual strength and stability and steadfast. There are people who still don't want to wake up in the morning one day a week to pray because they want to sleep in, much less wake up 15, 30 minutes early to take care of you, your spirit woman, to become the priestess of your household. And so we have to become disgusted with spiritual laziness and also spiritual arrogance. Letting go of spiritual arrogance is so very key, because many of us have become so arrogant about and as an overcompensation for the times that we didn't know any better. So now we think we know everything, and learning is really based off of how quick is it going to get me what I want. If I take your 30-day program, am I going to have a man on day 31? If I take your 30-day program, if I coach with you for 6 months, am I going to be able to heal this molestation trauma? If I do this, then if I go sign up for this program and then I go sign up and get this certificate and I go do this certificate, will they see me? Will they love me? Will they listen to me? Will they hear me? And then we go and we get the one thing after the next thing, and then when you feel like, well, damn, I'm still struggling on a deeper level in a way that nobody can see. Sometimes it's easy to become guarded. I talked about the whole armor. I think last week somewhere I was talking about the armor. I even made a post about the armor. I'll see if I can pull it, because many of us have become so armored in what we call a strength. We're like gladiators, and that's why y'all love a scandal. We become, and you call yourself scandalistas and gladiators, and we don't know our strength unless there's drama. But who are you in your soft space? Who are you in your vulnerability? The one that's willing to show up and tell the part of your story that has had a grip on your throat, to tell the truth about who you are when you are no longer really feeling who you have been. That's the place where the magic happens for us as women. That's the place of when I'm not going to keep on saying I don't want nobody to know my business. Man, people know your business. They whisper and gossip more when you pretend. But when you tell it, can't nobody tell it like you tell it. That's why I love my spiritual mother, Iona, who always says, I wrote it in a book. I just told it. So nobody else can tell my story for me. I love entertainers who put it out there. Yep, I'm bisexual. Yep, I did that. I once was a stripper. I don't do it no more. But you can't shame me with it. These are the ways that you become strong, but you got to stop shaming you with it. I had an affair, okay? And now that you disclose that, what do you really feel about yourself? Or he cheated. Or I had a threesome. Do you carry shame about that? I had an abortion. Many of us have been weakened by an experience, but you are not the sum total of one experience or 5 experiences. That is not the sum total of who you are. You have a right to evolve. And once you start to overcome the spiritual laziness or the opposite of spiritual arrogance, we begin to let in and become receptive to new ideas that plant new seeds in us and produce new fruit. I like to call them the juicy fruit, the juicy women. So this is a great segue for you to share. I know I've dropped a lot, and listen, I say I drop a lot in 15 minutes, 20 minutes of sharing, but y'all have been going to church and somebody preached to you for 45 minutes to an hour. Certainly, when it comes, this is kind of hopefully you have your pens and paper out in this Sunday, because we are activating our superpowers. And I want to hear, what are you activating today when you connect this with the law of vibration and your own personal strength and power? So I'm taking everyone off of mute. Hopefully next week I will be able to share a way that you can just raise your hand, and those who are ready to share, I can just go directly to it. There is a way to do it, but this is another way for me to stay present with you without any distractions. So just about everyone is off mute. If there's something you have to share, or something where your belly jumped in your listening today, the lines are now open.
Good morning. This is Dusty. LaTanya, that was so beautiful. And I wanted to, the thing that made my belly jump this morning was how you talked about we're in the war understanding of what vulnerability is. And that's something I'm really want to study, because, I said I wanted to work more on surrendering and what that means for me. So for me, it was on time that you even just talked about that definition, and how the gentleman you were working with had issues with that, but coming from a certain understanding, because obviously there's a totally different understanding of what vulnerability is. So thank you for sharing that.
Ashe, thank you. It's always so good to hear your voice. I just have a special love for you and Shawanda and my sisters who knew me back when. I just the fact that you're here, you don't even know how the ancestors dance in my heart and all around me. Whenever I hear your voice, I don't know if you know that, but I wanted to tell you that publicly.
Oh, no, I didn't know that, and thank you. That makes me feel good. Thank you. That makes me feel good. And you've been a beautiful example to me in this episode of my life. You've been a beautiful example to me, so thank you.
Ashe. Anyone else? Anything you heard or you received? It could be different than what I said. Some of you have relationships with these discipleships, such as Andrew, David, Samson.
Good
morning.
Sister LaTanya.
Greetings.
This is Vanessa, Sister LaTanya. I just wanted to say one of the things, everything reached my belly. And one of the things that I can mention is when you spoke on impatience and it originating in the ego, something I hadn't connected before. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for saying so. There was a second person with Vanessa that was saying something. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. This is Dawn. I enjoyed, everything that you put out, but what particularly caught my attention was, how I told everybody, years ago when I did the biblical characterization, I came out Peter, and it's just ironic that my son's name is Andrew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My son's name is Andrew. Wow. That's what I did. Wow. I didn't even, I hadn't seen it. Before then.
Wow, yeah, I definitely want to talk to you a little bit more about that, because whenever we have names that pop up like that, bloodline names or experiences, they actually are messages from the other side. And so that gave me chills. When I get chills, it's not me, it's them. So what did you hear? What is it that you heard in your listening about that, though?
So you said that Andrew
it's very
brother.
difficult to hear you. You're very muffled.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me better now?
A little bit, just a little.
Okay. You said that Andrew was Peter's brother, and actually, Andrew is my son, whom whom I have. So I birthed Andrew, and I am so much like Peter, but our name is Peterson. Both of our names is Peterson. So, I'm just trying to get a grasp on the correlation. I mean, he is much like his mother, much like me. So, I don't know. I mean, I would be interested in what the message, from the other side is. Definitely.
Okay. I would, maybe you can listen to this again, but I would encourage you to start to meditate on what was the condition of your mind when you conceived your son. You don't have to answer that here, but what was where? And every woman who's listening, if you look at where you were mentally, emotionally, and spiritually when you conceived the children that you have, it will tell you the experiences that you've had in raising them. Iyanla always talks about, well, she used to years ago, children are God in works clothing, and your unfinished business shows up in your children. Whatever it is you have been refusing to see, whatever it is that's inside of you that even a dream deferred. That's why sometimes a woman who is a singer, a lot of times, and she stops singing, she'll birth a child that'll go on and be a movie star, or a songstress or a recording artist or that type of thing. So
that's
I would encourage you to. So I'm sorry.
My mom sang, and she did not record, and so I am recording.
So ask that question and look at what the state of your mind, how your experience in raising your children, and in relationship to this message, where did you have to be strong? Because Peter definitely was defiant. Peter was I love Peter. I love Peter because he was a defiant disciple. Now, I don't always like y'all when y'all are defiant and y'all refuse to, it's funny that I love Peter, but the reason I love Peter is because I see Peter in me. And I see Peter in my ministry because he was an interruption, but Jesus really liked Peter.
He loved Peter.
He really liked Peter because Peter had the audacity to ask him questions. He wasn't just trying to people please him and worship him. Somebody's sleeping good on the call this morning. So it's going deep into their subconscious mind. Somebody's sleeping so good, they calling the hogs. That's what we say in the country. So that means this message is absorbing so deep. I'm going to talk about him. Can I talk about him for a minute? That means a lot of times when you fall asleep, you are so resistant, but yet willing enough to show up, but you can't take it all in, so it has to go into your subconscious mind. And that's why a lot of times it's good for those of you who have been fighting so much along the way of your journey to fall asleep listening to things that influence your subconscious mind so that you can stop fighting and struggling and straining and making yourself so afraid of your own power. So making yourself so afraid to show up in the world, making yourself so afraid of everything and everybody out to get you and do harm to you. Oh, my God. I don't know where that – but anyway, thank God for the sleeper.
That was a good tool right there. Thank you, sleeper. I wanted to say Thank you for saying that, because I know I have fallen asleep on the call once or twice and been so ashamed, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But I usually take a bath right before the call, so sometimes I take that bath and that hot water just lulls me right in. But I didn't stop to say that. I wanted to speak on the vulnerability piece and how we view it, and how we are always so encouraged to be so strong, so strong, so strong. But vulnerability has such an important role in getting in touch with what our strengths really are. But I have to coach myself and say it's okay to really allow myself to be vulnerable, like and redefine what that is. That cracking open. Someone very dear to me has demonstrated that so much over the last couple of weeks or so, and I keep saying it's okay. It's okay. That's where it is. That's where the magic is. That's where the juice is. But I say it to them, but I'm also saying it to myself. And so thank you for bringing that to the surface again.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. A lot of times when we get vulnerable, we have a tendency to want to run, and that or to fight. I'm sorry, I apologize for the sleeper that I can't mute out that person without muting out all of you all. My apologies to you on that. But
good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, I wanted to just interject really quickly before I walk out the door and put some noise. Can I say that when I started, vulnerability was very, very, very distant for me? This is Shandrika, by the way. Good morning. Can I just say that it feels good to be vulnerable? I just wanted to bring that to the forefront, to kind of just let go and allow. So in my journey, I've been able to just feel good now in that space sometimes, even though it still weirds me out a little bit. But I just wanted to say that the way that you spoke of strength today, I find that it is strength also to be vulnerable. So thank you for that. And that was my belly jump.
Thank you. I'm getting chills hearing this person sleeping like that, as hard as they're sleeping in here. And I want to just minister to all of you. There will be distractions that will show up like that. And look at how you all had to increase your volume. You had to stay focused on what it is that Spirit revealed to you in order to share and to show up. You will have distractions all around you of people who are still sleeping, but they're sleeping so loud that 85% of the population is sleeping and loud about their sleep.
Okay.
85% of the people in the world, not just around you, but you might be the only one in your family who is beginning to show up, who's beginning to tell the truth and not gossip. And you will have them sleeping loud. Oh, I'm going to preach that thing on Wednesday. I might have to do a special cloud. The loud sleepers. When they're sleeping loud all around you. But you have to turn up a little bit. So turn down for what?
Okay.
You know that when you work with me, everything is there for a reason. And so we give thanks for the sleepers, because when you're no longer asleep, sometimes you got to be able to drown out and tune out those who are so loud and still sleep. So loud and still sleep. All right now.
Okay.
All
Good
right.
morning. I just want to
go ahead, baby.
Good morning, really quickly. You talked about that vulnerability is coming out strong this morning, and how your strength lies in your vulnerability, and it pricked me because I brought to remembrance, all the times that I was vulnerable in my relationships, but I was still able to make strong decisions.
I thought about all the time I was vulnerable in my job, and I was still able to perform, in ways that even I was unsure that I could perform in. I thought about all the times I've been vulnerable, even in myself, when I just felt like I couldn't or I shouldn't or how am I going to or where is it going to come from. But even my strength rose up to move forward and press on to receive all the blessings that were right there for me, even in my vulnerability. So I give thanks for you bringing that out this morning, because I never, much like the dentist, I think I always looked at vulnerability in the war mode. But I didn't think about vulnerability from a strength. And so I'm grateful that you brought that out, because that's when I found that my strength really rises up, is when I'm vulnerable. So I thank you for that this morning. My prayer request is that I will continue in my strength in many forms that it comes in. I'll continue in my strength in a positive way, that it will continue to shine as bright as possible for myself, for my lineage, and for those that are around me.
Ashe. Thank you so much. Anyone else? And those of you who are in the Juicy You process, you understand that the way to access your juices is a lot of times tapping into those vulnerable places. The way that I used to think that sexual alchemy had to do with some kind of technique to expand my orgasm. Honey, please, sexual alchemy has everything to do with healing those places in you so that you don't have the armor. Many of us have armored yonis, armored wombs, armored hearts. And so, therefore, we can't, orgasm stays right at maybe just a few minutes. But when you begin to experience and remove these layers, that's why when people come back and do the Juicy You or the Rites of Passage process more than one time, they realize, damn, I missed that the last time I did it. I didn't. This had new meaning for me. Why? Because you are made new. Your cells are regenerated. And so why is it that we don't regenerate our mind? That's what this strength is. It's about regeneration. And that's a great segue to say that the Juicy You, the Lenten version, will be officially starting on Wednesday. Get your enrollments in. I did offer a bonus on our special call. I thank you for if all of you showed up. It was a pretty special meditation, and it wasn't recorded. And I've gotten a lot of requests for it, so I think I'm going to do it again. And do it individually, and I'll make that available for those of you who attended. But I will be offering the bonus She Magic Money, which will be on Thursday, when breaking those money curses. If you are enrolled in this Juicy You, if you pay the full price, the tuition to come in. So come on into the Juicy You for this Lenten edition. Charge up your Lent, and I'm going to give a special resource for us to follow during this Lent to really consecrate our mind, our body, and our spirit. It's going to make the work we're doing in Rebirth Sunday, Super Rebirth Sunday, even more special. Because now you'll be coming at all levels. See, when you really are looking for a quantum leap, you start to feed yourself at all levels. And see, what happens is after you finish processes, you go off and drift off into the wilderness and forget everything that you just learned. So consider the Juicy You a refresher for some and a rebirth for those who are just starting. This is a great time to segue into prayer. If you can place your hand on your womb. We know we came from a strong people, from a people who have endured and persisted the most horrible circumstances. We have come from a people but they predate those horrible experiences. There was an easy place, y'all. there was Elder Vicky did a little quick live, and she said, we don't have to struggle anymore. We don't have to keep on rehearsing the slave narrative. We don't have to keep crying to Pharaoh, let my people go. That's a beggar's mentality. No, at a certain point you can say, I'm gone. See, we might have come from a people who had to cry, let my people grow, but we came from people who predated it, who were warriors, who were fighters like we see in Black Panther. So activate your superpower today when you call forth your ancestor. I'm calling forth mine. Sarah Bolden, Priscilla Nash. Come on now, call them forth. Ashe. Ashe.
Girlie Rice.
Cinda Jackson.
Harry Jackson.
Viola Jones.
Lenny Marshall. Pat Hamlin. Catherine Hamlin.
Edwina.
Selma Britton.
Ashe.
Roberta Jackson.
Rosalie.
Harriet
Ashe.
Rosa Jackson.
Ashe.
Mary McLaughlin.
Coretta Scott.
Lorraine Calloway.
Ashe.
Betty
Adam C.J. Walker.
And Spencer.
I keep on hearing that there are many faces of the goddess, and so I'm going to speak their names before we go into prayer. Mafetefun, to all of these goddesses' names that I'm about to call. Mafetefun, Modupwe, 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 Oshun, Yemiya, Aphrodite, Oya. You can call them out with me if you want. Heka, Heku, Ashe, Ashe, Aset, Mayat, Bath,
Ferdy.
Ashe, Ashe, Yamoja, Mamiwata, Kali, Britti, Diana, Mary,
Candace's
Kuan Yin, Isis, Mawu, Rihanna, Maeve, Ostara, Nitoma, Conventina, Ashe, Sekhmet, Priya,
Ashe.
Athena,
Aphrodite,
Hathor, Mary Magdalene, the unknown Mary, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Abunchia, Ishtar, Ashe. Mother, Father, God, Holy Spirit, all that is within us, all that is, all that ever shall be. We thank you, Holy Spirit, that I am the daughter in whom you are well pleased. My sisters are the daughter in whom you are well pleased. We are not just daughters, we are also the friend of God. God is all that is. We thank you that the divine within us is our ally. And everything that has been built up to be an enemy is an opportunity for intimacy. Into me I see. Into myself I see. Into myself I activate my own superpowers to show up and to show out in the world. But most of all in my world, in my house, that we start at home and then we go abroad. That we are willing to do the work to heal ourselves, to elevate ourselves, to expand our families, to interrupt the patterns of pathology in the bloodline, to interrupt the falsehood and the precepts that no longer are working in our life. We pull down strongholds and tear down the same. We thank you for the rising up of the strong tower within us to be able to become a lookout for the blessing and for the breakthrough, not for the enemy. We surrender this consciousness and remember the spirit of Jehoshaphat. When the people were preparing for war, Jehoshaphat was in the crowd, and Jehoshaphat said, "This battle is not ours; it is the Lord's, the law of life." And they had to develop a new strategy. We thank you for the spirit of Jehoshaphat falling for those who have been fighters, fighting everything and everybody, fleeing from everything and everybody that looked like it was trouble. We, Holy Spirit, come right here, right now to help us to know that when we get ready to fight, when we get ready to run, that running and fighting is necessary when there really is an enemy. But when there just is a little conflict, Holy Spirit, give us the strength and the capacity to speak to the powers and say, that battle is not mine anymore. I'm surrendering it over to the fortitude of my mind, to the strong towers of my mind, to the work that I have done, the seeds that I have sown, that I give those seeds permission to grow and to give me shade or to give me fruit. And I am one with the fruit. I am one with the fruit in the reproductive nature of creativity, that I am reproducing the good thing, the sweet thing, the juicy thing in my life, that I am giving myself permission to say, oh, taste and see my own superpower, my own goodness, my own joy, my own deliciousness, that I give myself permission to study war no more.
Ashay.
We thank you, Holy Spirit, for each and every woman, for creating a new legacy in her bloodline. We thank you that you will let our legacy be abundant, that you will let our legacy be prosperous, that you will let our legacy love, that you will let our legacy grow, that you will let our legacy expand, that you will let us be legacy women, alchemical women, priestess of our own household, knowing that we did not come this far to turn around, to run back, and take cover. We thank you, Holy Spirit, that we will continue to bless the Lord, the law of life at all times, and those praises shall continuously be in our mouth. We let it be so, and so it is. Ashe. We give thanks this morning. Please come and refer a sister. Bring a sister. Sponsor a sister. If you're a Juicy Butterfly and you want to sponsor a sister, let me know. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I look forward to connecting with you on the other side. Ciao, everyone. Have a happy, beautiful, prosperous, juicy, delicious, divine Sunday. Let it set the tone for the rest of your week.
Thank you, Mel.